Hey, good Sunday morning to you guys out there in Woo Nation and, of course, on the Rotoballer YouTube page. And oh my gosh, the co-host is here today finally on another episode of
Woo!
Fantasy right here on rotoballer.com. Of course, rotoballer.com. Get your NFL premium pass today, ladies and gentlemen. rotoballer.com/radio. Get you a 50% discount on all the great items over there at rotoballer.com. Lineup optimizers for DFS, exclusive articles, lineup rankings, including my own rankings over there at rotoballer.com. Go to rotoballer.com/radio. Sign up today. Promo code WooFantasy get you an additional 10% off. So that is 60% off of the NFL Premium Pass, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot pass that up. Go and sign up today and Rotoball like a boss. And of course, like I mentioned, fresh off of celebrating Atlanta Braves victories, they're one game away from a World Series title. Co-host Nick Heffley, the real FF GOAT, back with us today. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
That's very true. It is not.
I'm just happy I have a voice left, man. Man, what a night! The last couple of nights, I really am shocked. I'm really shocked to have a voice left. I don't feel. I gotta keep lubricated in there. So gotta keep the voice fresh.
Yeah, I gotta use the lubrication.
New York.
so we can start answering these questions that are sure to be coming our way here in the next few minutes. So of course, if you're not if you're there joining us, let everybody know, jump in here. We've got you set and ready to go today. Send those questions into us here on the Rotoballer YouTube page, Rotoballer's Twitter account, and of course my own Twitter account, Roto Superstar. Send in those questions fast and furious. We've got you covered for up to the next hour, getting ready for kickoff and everything. So obviously the big news of the morning just came down the pike the last 15 minutes. Calvin Ridley, surprise inactive for personal matters. Obviously, we don't want to kind of get into speculation or anything as to what's going on, but here we are yet again, repeating the London game kind of fiasco where he personal mattered, sat down for that game. We're back in those shoes yet again. Calvin Ridley out today. Of course, it's not the greatest matchup. They're facing the Carolina Panthers defense. So how are we feeling about the Falcons' fantasy weapons now with Calvin Ridley out of the game today?
You know, the easy answer would be to say Kyle Pitts is going to have a great game. I've just been adjusting some lineups on FanDuel. I think it's going to be a Russell Gage game. That's where I'm leaning a little bit more. I think Cordell Patterson's going to be mixed in there as well. But yep, this has all the feels and makings of a Russell Gage game. He's on the cheap. You can probably get it. I mean, what a better bet out there for a very cheap 2-touchdown potential kind of a game out there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the go-to if you want kind of a cheap pivot in DFS lineups. You can go back to Russell Gage. As far as like seasonal lineups, anything like that, I'm not really kind of going out of my way to get Russell Gage into a lineup because I think we're going to see a similar game plan that we saw with that London game in this matchup here. You're probably going to see a lot of Cordell Patterson, going to see a big Kyle Pitts day-to-day. I had him as my tight end too in my rankings even before this news came out. So now, it's going to be hard to figure that he doesn't go for 100 yards and a touchdown in this game again today. So I'm banking on those two guys being the go-to for that Falcons offense today. But like you mentioned, I think Gage is definitely a guy that you can kind of sneak in for the cheap in DFS lineups. And he got into the end zone last week, and you would think, a lot of coverage focused on Kyle Pitts, especially over the middle of the field. They're going to have to get down the field somehow. I think Gage is definitely an excellent pivot when you look at a DFS lineup standpoint there. How are you gauging Matt Ryan, though, as a quarterback now in fantasy this week?
Gauging Matt Ryan. It's really tough to say. I mean, I'm definitely, DFS type stuff. I'm not necessarily going to be looking his direction. I think he's going to be very cheaply owned, but that's just a concern. I mean, but in games like this, typically Matt Ryan feels like he has to do more. which could be a good or a bad thing. Season long, the only league I have Matt Ryan in, I actually dropped Matt Ryan to pick up Daniel Jones because I also have Dak Prescott just for that potential late night pivot tonight. And I'm sure we'll talk about Dak Prescott, but I mean, if you have Matt Ryan, if you got bye week issues, I mean, he might be your guy, but certainly you can find somebody better out there to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good pivot and a good talking point, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of questions coming in. We've already got some kind of filtering in right now, but we're going to have some questions coming in regarding Dak Prescott in that situation and what to do with the Dallas quarterback later on tonight. I mean, by all gut feeling, I want to say that I think he plays that game tonight, but also from a smart standpoint, seeing as though we are only in week 8, I think they're going to go the cautious route and probably going to sit him down. The only reason I kind of had the thought that he might play in that game tonight is just because, I mean, it's an important thing for playoff seeding when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys playoff chances. You're looking at a NFC conference victory that goes on their docket. Now, if this were a road game, we're playing Las Vegas, the Raiders, that's not as much of a meaningful victory in terms of playoffs as a win against the Minnesota Vikings would be. So I think that's where it kind of gauges in my answer when it comes to Dak Prescott. But here I am. I'm kind of in the same boat as a lot of you when it comes to Dak Prescott as we head into that game later on. I've got Dak Prescott in numerous lineups. Flex League, with SiriusXM, that's one of them I've already picked up. I've got Daniel Jones. He was a free agent on the wire. I grabbed Daniel Jones, so I have that late game ability to pivot to go to Daniel Jones if Dak is inactive. Now, outside of that, there's other question marks. I mean, if you've got a guy that's going to be on the waiver wire that you're looking at that's in these early games, what do you do if you're in that position? And I know you have Dak in some lineups as well. What do you do?
Yeah. I think it depends on who that backup start is. Little brother's here going to the game with me tonight. He was just asking me right before I came in here. I've got Dak Prescott. I've got Justin Herbert. Where do I go? I mean, the answer is easy. You got to go Herbert. The two quarterbacks are fairly equal. If the quarterbacks are equal, again, I've got Matt Ryan compared to Dak Prescott. I don't necessarily think that's just it's an easy to slot in guy, because I do think if Dak Prescott starts, and again, you and I talked about this last night, they're not going to put out Dak Prescott out there if he's not 100%. There's no reason for them to do that at this point right now. So if he's out there, he's starting. There's no question that he's not. But obviously, if you've got some other guys out there, it's a question 1% or the other who's going. So if you can get a guy like Daniel Jones, if somebody like that's on your bench, I think that's the ideal play this week, is to have Daniel Jones on your bench. If he doesn't go, he is a great start this week. But if you have somebody of that higher caliber ilk, which it could have been Aaron Rodgers or Kyler Murray the other day, and you didn't get a chance to start them, you're kind of in that pickle. So I think if you have somebody that, again, that you qualify as a QB1, go ahead and start that guy and just have that peace of mind that I have somebody in that position going to get some points, even though Kyler Murray sucked.
Yeah, and like in some other situations that I'm in, there's a couple of leagues that I already had Teddy Bridgewater on the bench. I'm pivoting and going to Teddy Bridgewater because the matchup is outstanding for Bridgewater today. So I'm going to go with that matchup. But in our SBFFC, our high stakes league that we're in Kentucky, I made the decision last night when free agency opened up and first come, first serve, picked up Sam Darnold. Going over to Sam Darnold in hopes that Sam Darnold can provide a little bit of punch for me in case Dak is not playing in that game tonight. And let's be honest, I think if Dak does play, I'm expecting some, a little bit less of a creative game plan, a little bit more run heavy. And I think we're going to probably see Dak, not the normal Dak in that game against Minnesota. I think we're going to probably focus on the run in that game. So that's what I'm looking at there. Then our last tidbit before we get into these questions real quick, of course, keep them rolling in over here on the Rotoballer YouTube page. Keep those questions filing in. We'll get to you here in just a second. But another surprise inactive, Jamal Williams with the healthy scratch. Automatic lock for DeAndre Swift today as a top 5 running back in fantasy. That has to be the case, correct?
Yeah, I mean, he was going to be in your lineup anyway today, but I think, he, at least in DFS, becomes a lot more of a chalk player. You're going to see a lot more people going, with Swift. I mean, he's got the ability to be able to have an amazing game today. So, I mean, I think, again, this is not going to come as any surprise to anybody that has DeAndre Swift. You were starting him anyway coming in the day, but
Yes.
I think this makes it even more of a lock in DFS.
Yeah, I just got a text just a minute ago from our good friend Mr. Charisma, Justin Farley, wanting to know, are you getting DeAndre Swift in every lineup in DFS? Answer is yes. It's the ones I could actually make a few moves and fit DeAndre Swift into my DFS lineups. Yeah, I'm obviously getting him in there. There's some that I wasn't able to I would have to rearrange the entire lineup just to fit DeAndre Swift. So I'm going to use that as the contrarian play and not go DeAndre Swift there and kind of play with what I've got in there in some of those lineups. So yeah, that's our big news heading into week 8 action here. So of course we'll probably see quite a bit of these questions coming in here as we get to them. We'll start off, get into some of these questions, get ready for everyone here. Brian here wanting to know, he's in a 12-team full PPR, needs 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. We're looking at Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Sterling Shepard. Then you have Devontae Booker, Melvin Gordon, Brandon Bolden, or Dearness Johnson. We need to pick a wide receiver and a flex out of these options for Brian here.
I think Cooper's is an absolute go for me at that first wide receiver spot. With or without Dak Prescott, I think he's going to be a guy that I am definitely playing. And what looks to be a really good matchup against the Vikings there. So the flex is the biggest question mark. I think Booker is somebody that I'm looking at. For me, I think it's between Booker and Jeudy. Week 1, back for Jeudy. Just like you said, you've got Teddy Bridgewater coming back. I think it's going to be a game that he's going to try to maybe get the ball out to Jeudy and kind of get him back and involved. So at the end of the day, full PPR, Jeudy.
You teased it there a little bit. I was wondering which way you're going to go there, but I agree. You're going.
I didn't know which way I was going until I said it. I really didn't.
I'm very intrigued by the Booker matchup. Kansas City does allow their bottom 12 in points allowed to fantasy running backs, but on top of the usage, he's just not really provided the punch as far as yardage that we've really expected. He's kind of saved the day when he's gotten into the end zone. He's gotten into the end zone. That's kind of saved his day. He's been kind of averaging 3 to 4 receptions a week, so that's kind of helpful a little bit as well. But I'm kind of on a teeter-totter here when I'm looking at Jeudy and Booker. Everything else, I'm looking at all the other options. I'm kind of moving those out aside. Dearness Johnson's intriguing because I think he could still get utilized in that game today in that Kareem Hunt role. But I'm going to lean more towards Jeudy and agree with you. I'm heavy on that matchup today against that Washington secondary that is just atrocious. Let's be honest. I think Jeudy coming back, they're probably going to make a point to really kind of air the ball out today based on the matchup. So I'm expecting good games from both Sutton and Jeudy. So I'm going to go with Jeudy there in the flex, and we're going to lock in Cooper as your wide receiver 1, Brian. So get him in there and lock and load. And then our good friend here, Saban's burner. Of course, Nick was not here for the post-Alabama beatdown last week, so he didn't get to comment on.
That's the whole reason I didn't come on the show.
Yeah, that was the whole reason. So, morning, he's got 3 players out. It's not really much to choose from. Only ones he can choose between is Waddle or Cooks. Which one are you going to go with between Waddle or Cooks there?
Great choice. I think it's great choices. My early instinct is to go Waddle. But let me check some weather here. Indoor against the Rams. I'm not going Cooks. They're going against the Rams and potentially got a little Jalen Ramsey action on there. So I'm going to go Waddle.
Yeah, I've got them literally side by side in rankings right now. And the only reason I'm leaning more towards Cooks. I mean, let's be honest. Both players are going to be playing from behind. So you're going to be hoping for some garbage time points from both. But Buffalo has been stingy as all get out and really kind of not allowed points to the opposing wide receivers. Whereas Cooks, I mean, you can go to revenge game narrative if you want to, but I think that there's going to be a little bit more upside to get Cooks in the end zone, whether it be Ramsey on him or not. I'm not really worried. I think Ramsey's going to stay on one side of the field. They'll move Cooks around the formation somewhat. It's close there, Saban. It's kind of a coin flip between the two, but right now I'm leaning more towards Cooks. I've got him higher in my rankings. So I'm going to go Cooks. Nick's going Waddle. Waddle's been hot.
Waddle has been hot. Tua has been good. I started Tua last week, and I didn't get a chance to tout myself. I started Tua in quite a few leagues last week, just thinking that was going to be the case. So even though the yardage won there, those 4 touchdowns were nice. Before we get on to the next question, though, I think it bodes without saying, we had a trade this last week. Mark Ingram gets dealt and goes back to the Saints. So now you've got Philip Lindsay, you've got David Johnson. What are you thinking is going to be the breakdown of that running back situation be?
I think you're going to see more David Johnson than you see Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay will probably cover most of the early down work. But let's be honest, Houston's going to be in formations where they're going to have to throw coming from behind quite a bit. And David Johnson's more of a player that you can put in and be more deceptive to an opposing defense, whether he can run the ball or bring pass catching back from out of the backfield. So I think that flexibility, you're going to see David Johnson play more snaps than Philip Lindsay. So I've got David Johnson I've picked up over the course of the last week in a couple of leagues because I think that workload is going to start to increase and he's going to become more of a factor as far as a flex player based on matchups weekend. I mean, we're getting into bye weeks, so there's going to be situations where you can play David Johnson in the flex based on matchups here coming up. But
you're going to have some spots.
You're going to have to with some of the 4 teams on bye next week. So we're back into another situation where you're going to have more players off the board. So Carl jumping in here wanting to know he's currently streaming CJ Uzomah. Is there anyone you recommend checking in on for waivers?
I was waiting for this. You and I know we're waiting for this question, right?
Yes.
Lay on the knowledge, B. I was going to go this way, but you go ahead.
I'm going to pick up if he's available. I'm going to get Pat Freiermuth. That's your pickup and play today. Eric Ebron's out for the Steelers.
That's a DFS play for me today.
And that's definitely a good DFS play. He was one of the 2 tight ends I was targeting in DFS today as well. So
the other being?
Freiermuth, the other being today, you give him to me. I don't know which one you're talking about.
No, you said that was one of the 2 tight ends I was going for DFS.
Hunter Henry's the other one. You're riding the touchdown streak. We're riding the wave currently with Hunter Henry. Revenge game against the Chargers. So that's where I'm kind of leaning on Hunter Henry there. But no, Freiermuth should be available in your leagues, Carl. So you should be able to go pick up and grab him today. Although the matchup on paper looks good for Uzomah today, I'm not expecting to see another 2 touchdown game on 3 catches like we saw last week for him. Whereas Freiermuth,
we're regressing back to that mean.
Exactly. So whereas before the bye we saw Freiermuth, I believe had like a 7-catch game in that game without Juju Smith-Schuster in the lineup. Now you don't have Eric Ebron. They're going to need somebody to go over the middle and catch those short to intermediate routes. Besides Deontay Johnson, so I like Freiermuth a lot today. So he should be a guy you want to go pick up and play today there, Carl.
Let's get I've got probably time for one more question, so let's make it
one more question. Then we're gonna switch back to solo duties on the show here today.
Next week it'll be back and better. Than
Dan
ever.
Cook coming back in was jumping in last week on the show, wanting to know he's stuck between starting either Tyler Lockett or T. Higgins.
So the only if Russell Wilson's a starting quarterback, honestly, this is a week I probably would go Tyler Lockett, but I just don't like Geno Smith. I don't like what he brings, and I say this, and he's probably going to go off for 2 touchdowns, but until I see a little bit more to Tyler Lockett, I mean, DK Metcalf has been a little bit more of a guy that Geno Smith has targeted. I'm going to go T. Higgins here, or again, I don't know that I necessarily like either of the guys this week. If you got a chance to be able to, again, go out and go get, a Russell Gage out there, that's probably the move that I'm making. But out of these two, if you have to go that direction, I'm going T. Higgins.
Yeah, I think it's a lesser of two evils, if you want to be honest with it. Like T. Higgins has a difficult matchup against the Jets secondary today. But let's look at Tyler Lockett with the 2 games of Geno Smith currently right now. 10 targets in 2 games, 4 catches over those 2 games, with a total of 47 yards, no touchdowns. So not optimal lineup usage for Tyler Lockett. We're looking at, of course, the Jaguars matchup is good. It's one certainly that you would like to attack. I mean, they're giving up 23.5 points per game to fantasy wide receivers, but I don't think that's good enough to vault him over T. Higgins for me today. I think T. Higgins is the play. Tyler Lockett's definitely kind of fallen into this Allen Robinson mode for me, kind of that show me. You're going to have to play a game and show me that you're ready to get back in the lineup situation right now.
Or at least have Russell Wilson back. The day Russell Wilson comes back, I'm probably playing Tyler Lockett today, but that's not the case. And again, it's like you said, the Jets secondary, I think they're going to be keying in on Jamar Chase, which leaves, and T. Higgins has not had, some good weeks here lately. I think it's a week you see him find the end zone.
Yeah, I think he's finally kind of getting back to fully healthy, and that's going to help out a lot too. So I think that's where I'm going to lean there. So Dan, we're going to go with T. Higgins today in that matchup, and with that, I guess we're going to let the co-host
enjoy the day, man. This could be the one. We just found out Tucker Davidson's going to be starting tonight. I love that man. Woo!
Could be a clinching game for Nick Heffley and the Atlanta Braves tonight.
Keep your fingers crossed for me, people. I need one more of these on this end. So let's go.
Yeah, send him all your good vibes over there too at the Real FF Goat, ladies and gentlemen, and wish him luck in the game later on tonight. Braves Astros game 5.
8:15 tonight. Opposite right of the Cowboys game. I know what game Brandon's gonna be watching, but all right. Good luck to everybody. Good luck in your DFS lines up. Pat Fryermuth, Russell Gage.
And he's out. All right. See you later. And switching over to solo duty for the rest of the show, we're going to get back into these questions. Of course, jump in here, send me those questions at the Rotoballer YouTube page, Rotoballer's Twitter page, or of course the Roto Superstar Twitter page as well. I've got you covered up until kickoff here in the next few minutes. Getting back to the questions, Irv Gotti needing to know he's got one for his flex spot. We're looking at Jalen Waddle, Carter, or Slayton here. And for that flex, I know we just kind of talked about it just a minute ago with the matchup being a little bit difficult. I'm probably going to lean Waddle, though. I think I'm going to hope for those points towards the end of the ball game. Hope for a bunch of catches in the fourth quarter as they're trailing and playing from behind and trying to work their way back. I think Waddle's going to be the play there based on potential usage over the other players. Slayton's coming back, had a decent game back in his first game back, week 7. But now you're looking at Sterling Shepard being back. You're looking at Kadarius Toney being back in that game against the Chiefs on Monday night. So I don't think you're going to see the targets to be there. Michael Carter, though, is very, very intriguing. It's a good matchup for him against the Bengals. They actually, the defense has been fairly stout throughout the year. I'm kind of intrigued in getting Carter in to play. I've got him as a kind of a long shot play in DFS today in a couple of lineups. So kind of hoping for the catches to be there in that dump off situation from Mike White. But let's be honest, I'm going to play the better player, and that's Jalen Waddle. So Irv, let's get Jalen Waddle into your lineup there in that flex, and let's hope for the best at the end of that game. But getting over next question, got Alex Holman needing to know he's wanting to start 2 out of Darrell Williams, Chuba Hubbard, Zach Moss, Chase Claypool, or Jerry Jeudy. I'm assuming we're looking at flex options here. Not sure standard half point, full point PPR here either. I'm going to assume we're looking at a PPR situation. But for me, I think I'm definitely getting Chuba Hubbard in the lineup. in one of those spots. Other question is, I'm kind of leaning on Darrell Williams or Jerry Jeudy. Uh, but based on usage, I know we had a down week last week with Darrell Williams. He disappointed a lot of us in that game against the Titans. I think this could be a bounce back week. They kind of right the ship against the New York Giants on Monday night. So I'm going to go with Darrell Williams. We're going to play both of the running backs here in that situation. So those would be the two plays there. And that's who we're going to go with. And next question getting in here. Emilio's wanting to know, doing good. So thank you, by the way. Happy Halloween to you and yours, Emilio. But he's wanting to know, should I drop A-Rob for Russell Gage or start A-Rob with Ridley out? I think you're going to stick with A-Rob. I'm not ready to drop A-Rob fully yet for a Russell Gage in a potential 1 week cross your finger hope situation. I know we've all been disappointed by Allen Robinson, his performance up to date. Probably not going to really get much of out of him this week either. I think you're probably looking at kind of another low ball week for Allen Robinson, but am I willing to drop him and risk just throwing him back out there on the waiver wire just to pick up a Russell Gage who, let's be honest, his numbers will continue to be inconsistent throughout the year. I just don't trust it with Russell Gage. We've seen him kind of get banged up early on in the season as well. So for me, I think I'm going to stick with Allen Robinson, kind of hope for the best today. But yeah, Russell Gage obviously is a good pickup and play today. But if you had another option to drop, say you had a second defense or a second tight end or something to that degree, that would probably be the route that I would go with. I'm just not ready to risk Allen Robinson, having a late season surge, perhaps. Say they finally figure things out in Chicago. Let's be honest, and that's another thing to point out today. I mean, they're not going to have Matt Nagy on the sidelines today out with the COVID protocols. Bill Lazor should be still continuing to call the plays, but I'll be interested to see how that Bears offense plays today without Matt Nagy there. I think they might be a little bit more loose. They might change up some of the game plan just a little bit, unless, like I was telling Nick last night, the quintessential Bears fan between us, who knows? Matt Nagy, he might be the type of coach that's coaching from his basement using the bat phone on the sideline. So we'll see how that plays out. But as far as Dak, kind of what we talked about just a few minutes ago, depends on your options. If you've got a backup quarterback with a decent enough matchup, I think I would go to that. Like I mentioned, I'm playing in certain situations. I'm playing Teddy Bridgewater and I'm playing Sam Darnold today over Dak, just with the uneasiness and the uneasy feeling that we have headed into that game tonight with the Cowboys and the Vikings. So really, it's going to depend, Emilio, on what you have there as your secondary option to pivot to. So if you've got a decent enough matchup to go to, that would probably be the play I would go, kind of the play it safe mode. Obviously, the most optimum switch to go to would be Daniel Jones if he was available, or if you were lucky enough to have him on your bench, that would be the one to go to. But let's be honest, not a lot of people are going to have that option. Daniel Jones is probably owned in quite a bit of leagues. So Myron jumping in, getting no love in DFS today, and I'm loving it. He's a good guy to go to, kind of that contrarian play. You just have to hope the touchdowns are going to be there. That's the thing with Uzomah. He's not going to really give you that high target volume situation. So that for me, that's the reason I'm kind of a little bit more lower on Uzomah this week. I don't think he gets in the end zone. That's going to really directly affect his overall numbers for the day. Now, looking at Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson, now that Denzel Ward is out for Myron, that's an easy answer all day long. We're going Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, you're probably looking at another 15 target game today, probably close to around 10 catches overall on the game. We know, Cleveland and Pittsburgh always play real things, things really close between those two. They know each other really well. But I'm going to go with Deontay. He's obviously the alpha, the wide receiver one in that offense. And like we mentioned just a minute ago, I think the other guy to look at there is Pat Freiermuth in that offense today. Claypool, definitely kind of the down the field option, potentially getting the end zone on a long play, but overall, I like Deontay Johnson more, especially with Ward out now. I definitely think he's the guy to go to. So that would be what we would go with. Carl jumping back in, wanting to know. He went ahead and he got Freiermuth. Good job there. Good pick and pull. I think he's going to be a good pull for you today and play in your tight end spot. Needs a flex in a standard format. So we're looking at Chuba Hubbard, Devontae Smith, or Kenny Gainwell. With it being the standard scoring, I'm going to lean more towards Hubbard. That's going to give me a little bit more of an ease to go over to Chuba Hubbard, and he's going to be the play for me today. I like him a little bit more because of the standard scoring situation. Kenny Gainwell is going to be intriguing today. Should see a lot of usage, especially as a pass catcher in that offense with Miles Sanders out. The question is going to be how much he's going to be utilized as a running back, an actual running option in that Eagles offense. And I think it's going to be a situation. I would not be shocked to see Boston Scott, the actual starter for the Eagles today in that game. So that's going to be something to kind of look out for as well. So if you're in a PPR format, Gainwell's definitely a guy that I'm leaning on today. I like that option. But I think Boston Scott's going to be filtered in a lot more than what we're ready to really kind of buy in for. So here, 30 minutes before kickoff, ladies and gentlemen, let's kind of reset the stage here. Of course, get those questions in. Of course, like I mentioned, Rotoballer's YouTube page. You're already here, and you're watching the pregame Woo Fantasy Game Day Live kickoff show. We want to get those questions in here. Definitely shoot them into us. We've got you covered here for the next few minutes. While you're at it, of course, if you don't go and check us out throughout the week, rotoballer.com is the place to go to. Lineup optimizers, rankings for the week, exclusive rankings we've got, and also the articles to check out to get everything ready for you to set these lineups throughout the week. Definitely the Who to Start tool is one that I like to go to and utilize there. You can plug in players from your lineup into that model, and it pumps out who you should be playing in your lineup based on projections, rankings, and that model is definitely a useful tool for a lot of people out there. So go check that out on rotoballer.com. Back to the questions. We've got Sean here wanting to know, Sean Hales, Devontae Smith, Melvin Gordon, Jamison Crowder, Deontay Johnson. Assuming you need one, this is a flex in a half-point PPR. Out of your options there, I'm going to lean a little bit more on Devontae Smith. That'll be the one I would go with. We're seeing he's kind of getting utilized a little bit more here in recent weeks. I know that Philadelphia Eagles offense has really just not been one to write home about when it comes to a passing attack and the consistency there. But he's coming off a 9-target game with 5 receptions. Hasn't scored in a couple of weeks. He's only got the one on the season. But I do like the matchup today for Devontae Smith. I think things could line up for him to get into the end zone in that game. Melvin Gordon, we've seen he's gotten into the end zone here lately. Jamison Crowder looks like a good option with Corey Davis out, but it's Mike White as well. I think you're going to see a lot of dump-offs there to Michael Carter. Jamison Crowder probably going to be an option when it comes to pass catches. I'm not sure the yardage and the catches are going to be equal enough to what I'm looking at for Devontae Smith. So I like Devontae Smith there, Sean, out of your options. You've got a few good options there. They're all kind of grouped together. But the ones that I'm looking at, I think there's a little bit more higher upside with Devontae Smith. Kind of what I mentioned. I like to go to the better player as the tiebreaker in a lot of those close situations like that. And so in your situation, I think Devontae Smith is the go-to. So, Sean, we want to get Devontae Smith in the lineup here for week 8 in the flex positions. Steven wanting to know, he's got Antonio Gibson, Keenan Allen, or Alice Collins at flex. I think I'm going to go Keenan Allen, kind of in a get-right game this week. New England's been fairly kind of a little bit stingy when it comes to pass defense on the season. They rank right in the middle of the pack when it comes to fantasy points per game, giving up 24.4 to wide receivers on the year. Mike Williams, of course, we saw coming back off the bye, should be fully healthy. Probably going to see a lot of J.C. Jackson today. So you're going to see Keenan Allen kind of get utilized a lot out of the slot. I think they're going to have a situation where they're going to really kind of rely on and pepper Keenan Allen with some targets today. Austin Eckler, of course, we saw he didn't practice on Thursday and Friday, but now is expected to play. He even kind of came out and said himself he is going to play today. How much can you rely on and count on Austin Eckler? How healthy is he? That remains to be seen. And a lot of times when you see that Austin Eckler is banged up or not playing or out of the lineup, it heavily favors Keenan Allen. So that's going to be a situation where I like Keenan Allen out of your options here, Steven. So we want to get Keenan Allen there at flex. Great option to have there, by the way. Keenan Allen as a flex starter, you can't really argue with that. That's a good one to go to. Sergio want to know, is Dak Prescott playing tonight? Buddy, I would love to tell you 100% that he is. But me being a fan and really looking up all the beat writers and the reporters, it is 50-50 at best right now. I've seen reports that have come out that have said, Calvin Watkins that covers the team has said he's playing tonight. And that a lot of this is just conjecture and that they're kind of playing with the Vikings and media right now. But then you see a lot of other people that are coming out and saying that it's going to be a long shot. You've seen some people with sources from inside the organization that have said that they're fully prepared at this point in time that Cooper Rush is going to be the starter tonight. It is 50-50 as 50-50 can be when I tell you that. And like I've mentioned so far throughout this show, if you have an option to pivot to go to right now that you have any level of confidence in, I think you have to go that route just to play it safe. I mean, especially depending on your record. If it's a situation where you need to get a win this week, I don't think you can play with it. I think you need to get, the safer option in your lineup and hope that they perform well enough that kind of rest your mind at ease a little bit as far as putting Dak Prescott on the bench. So that's how I'm looking at it. That's my take on it. I'm really kind of it's a coin flip at best with Dak Prescott right now. I couldn't tell you for sure. There's so many conflicting reports, and when you see a lot of that out there, you just really kind of have to go the safer route when it comes to fantasy management, and that's the way that I would go as well. So getting back in here, we got Kenneth Anderson wanting to know half point PPR. He's got a flex position dilemma here between Zach Moss, Devontae Booker, or Jerry Jeudy. We had one earlier that we were debating between Booker and Jeudy, and we both leaned and gave the answer to Jerry Jeudy. So I think that's going to be my answer here as well. I think it's going to be shaping up to be a good day for the Broncos pass catchers for Sutton and Jeudy. Judy's first game back, like I mentioned, I think they're going to make it a point to kind of get him the ball. And for me, I think I'm going to pivot and play Jerry Jeudy. So although I do like Zach Moss today too, I think there's a chance that he's getting into the end zone at least once against the Miami Dolphins defense that has been horrible against opposing running backs. So I think there's a chance that Moss could get in the end zone. But I like Jeudy overall out of your options there. So Kenneth, we're gonna get Jeudy in there and play Jeudy. Sergio, should I pick Prescott or Burrows? Like I mentioned just a minute ago, I'm playing Burrows. The matchup is a little bit tough, but I think that Bengals offense is playing on – they're hitting on all cylinders over the past few weeks. This is good. Should be a good game for Mixon as far as from the running perspective too, because the Jets, a lot of teams have been able to run the ball at ease against the Jets. And if that's going to be the case, it's going to open up things for the Bengals passing attack. They have plenty of options. Let's not beat around the bush there. They're not hurting for pass catching options. They're not going to be limited and be a one-sided offense. So yeah, for me, I'm definitely going to play Burrows over Dak Prescott, Sergio. So I think that's going to be the plug and play for me. So Burrows, put him in your lineup, feel good about it. And Dak plays, he plays, but I think you're making the right decision by going with Joe Burrows there. Abundant Life wanting to know, I got a question here between Matt Ryan or Daniel Jones. And if I go to my rankings, I've got Daniel Jones ranked as a top 10 option this week based on the matchup. Got him at QB8 on the week, where I have Matt Ryan down at QB15 currently. It's kind of a more difficult matchup against Carolina. Now we're missing Calvin Ridley. I think I'm going to go with Daniel Jones, who is getting a slew of pass catchers back in this game against the Kansas City defense that has just not been good against opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers at this point in the season. So we're going to go with Daniel Jones there over Matt Ryan, plug him and play him in there. And needs a running back and a flex out of Darrell Henderson, Shuba Hubbard, Cortland Sutton. Whew. Man, I'm going Henderson at running back. This is a good one. But as far as the flex option, I can't avoid Cortland Sutton this week. Hubbard, man, you've got some good options to go with there, but I like the upside of both Henderson and Sutton. Both have supreme plus matchups that are going on for them this week. I like Henderson's upside as far as kind of a playing ahead type of game plan. Henderson getting in the end zone against the Houston Texans today, but like I just mentioned with Jerry Jeudy just a few moments ago, I think the Broncos pass catchers against the Washington secondary that's dead last in the NFL in points allowed to opposing fantasy wide receivers. I think Cortland Sutton, it's just a mixture of everything that's coming to fruition today for that team. I think Cortland Sutton is one of the league leaders in air yards. Washington football team's secondary is one of the league leaders in air yards allowed. So if you put 1 and 1 together, you get 2. And for me, we're getting Cortland Sutton into that lineup today. Myron jumping back in. Surprise player to break the slate today is kind of a guy that I wrote about in my article, my booms and busts for the week over at rotoballer.com, and a guy that's definitely flying under the radar this week. I like Cole Beasley a lot today. He's definitely flying under the radar. There's not going to be any ownership when it comes to Cole Beasley today on DFS. But if you really look at it and you go and look at his numbers, he's averaging almost 9 catches in 3 games in which he's faced teams that have been bottom 3 in defense and points allowed per game to opposing wide receivers. And what does he have today? A Miami Dolphins defense that's one of the worst in the NFL in that category. So I think that's going to line up for a good situation for Cole Beasley in a situation where you're getting him on the cheap and not a lot of people are going to be playing him. So it's going to give you a lot of roster flexibility in terms of DFS today. And you can kind of move around the chessboard a little bit and be able to kind of up the price at other positions on your roster by playing him today. So jumping in, Savvy wanting to know Javonte, Jalen Waddle, McPherson, or Koo. I'm going to go with McPherson as far as your kicker goes. Koo is interesting, but I think that's going to change a lot with the Calvin Ridley situation. I think they're going to be a little bit less, have a little bit less punch to their offense today because of that. But I just like McPherson a little bit more. I think the Bengals are going to be in scoring position a little bit more than Atlanta will be today. Javonte or Waddle is a good question, though. It's really a coin flip for me between those two. But when you really boil down to it, you're really kind of hoping that Javonte kind of gets into the end zone against Washington's defense. It's a good matchup for Javonte, but again, he's splitting the workload right down the middle, and even to a lesser extent between he and Melvin Gordon. But I'm probably going to lean more towards Waddle here, as much as I hate to. I want to play Javonte. I like getting Javonte into my lineups. He has that dual threat eligibility and catches those passes out of the backfield. But in a game script form, I think they're going to be looking at a situation where Waddle, I think he's going to pack in some catches late in that game. I think he's going to outscore Javonte because of that. Again, just a few more minutes left here today in this game, in our Woo Fantasy Game Day kickoff show. So if you've got some of these last minute questions, shoot them in to me. I've definitely got some questions coming into me here on Twitter as well. So I'm kind of checking those out as we're looking here through the question queue. Let's see. Okay, so getting back into it, 909 Orbits. Definitely a good friend of the show here, jumping in, wanting to know Teddy Bridgewater or Daniel Jones. I have Daniel Jones ranked slightly ahead of Teddy Bridgewater, just more or less based on the fact that he adds that rushing potential as well. That's really kind of the kicker for me. I think Daniel Jones is going to give you a little bit more of an edge from a rushing standpoint. I think passing wise, you could probably see them kind of in a similar form by the end of the games for both. But that rushing appeal is going to give me a little bit more credence to lean towards Daniel Jones 909. So we're going to go with Daniel Jones there. So lock him in, get him in your lineup there, ready to go today. So here we go. Chip Douglas need to know if Dak is out, Geno Smith, Jared Goff, or Cooper Rush. Whew, that is a tough one because I don't feel good about Geno Smith at all, so he's off. Jared Goff, let's kind of go down because I've got him ranked really, really low this week. I don't like that matchup against Philadelphia. So let's look here. And over the course of the past 3 games, his high total from a fantasy point production standpoint has been 13 points, and that was last week against the Rams on the road. Of course, we saw that he came out pretty hot over the course of 3 of the first 4 games were fairly strong production totals, but they have not been good here lately. Now with the news with Jamal Williams being out as well, I think we're looking at a situation where you're going to see a lot of DeAndre Swift today. They're going to lean on DeAndre Swift in that game from a rushing standpoint and kind of hope to keep Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense off the field somewhat. So for me, that's what I'm going to go. And if you're looking at if you're going to kind of play the gambling card here, I think I'm going to pick up Cooper Rush and hope that Dak plays in your situation here. That way you can pivot to Cooper Rush if Dak is declared ineligible later on tonight for that Sunday night game. So I just do not like Geno Smith or Jared Goff. I know those are probably kind of your last bit options of potential quarterbacks on your waiver wire, but I don't like any of those guys. So I think we want to go with Cooper Rush, Chip. Pick him up. Hope Dak plays. Would be your best option out of what you've got there in front of you. So, and then Abundant jumping back in, wanting to know Jerry Jeudy or Robert Woods. Whew, that's a close one too. Robert Woods, we saw since that get right game that he had just a few weeks ago where he had the 12 catches. He's been back to kind of that ho-hum kind of secondary option for the Rams while Cooper Kupp's exploded yet again. So I think from a catch and yardage standpoint, both of these guys are going to be in similar modes. Between those two, I think their production totals from yardage and catch standpoint is going to be similar. Who's going to get in the end zone? Who has that upside to get in the end zone? For me, I think that's Jeudy. So we're going to play Jeudy over Woods there. First game back, like I said, I think they're going to make it a point to get him the ball. So let's get Jeudy into your lineup and play him there. Got just we'll say about another 7 to 8 minutes. We'll be running the show here with the Woo Fantasy Game Day Kickoff Show. So if you have those last minute questions, get them in here to us at the Rotoballer YouTube page, or of course at Rotoballer's Twitter account, Roto Superstar, my Twitter account as well. So send us in those last minute questions. I'll be glad to get those into you. Joe B coming in right quick. Glad to see you in the show here today, Joe. Wanting to know Booker or Pollard, also Lockett or Beasley. He does have Allen. Also, Shepard is playing from all indications that I've seen. So between your running back options there, I'm going Booker. We've seen Pollard kind of get phased out somewhat in that offense the last few games. So I would probably go myself. I would go with Booker over Pollard. And like I mentioned just a few minutes ago in that option with him as well, he's going to be predicated by whether or not he gets in the end zone. I think on that matchup, he's going to have a good chance of getting into the end zone. Now, the other question, Lockett or Beasley, I've been speaking the praises of Cole Beasley the last few days. I think he's a good play today in that matchup against Miami. It should outproduce Lockett in that game. I mean, you're looking at Lockett what's his ceiling that we've seen in recent weeks? His ceiling is probably going to be a 3 or 4 catch game. I don't think he's going to explode and have those big Tyler Lockett weeks that we've been accustomed to seeing with Geno Smith at quarterback. So for me, that's going to lean more towards getting Cole Beasley into my lineup. I think Beasley should have a solid game today, and easily a floor that's going to top Lockett's ceiling today. So Beasley for me is going to be the play, Joe. That's one we're going to go with. Get him into your lineups. Booker and Beasley there for you today. Chris want to know, is it worth the gamble to drop David Johnson and snag D'Ernest Johnson? I don't believe so. I think you're looking at similar usages for both of these players in their respective games. I think D'Ernest Johnson's going to come in and spell Nick Chubb probably a little bit more today as they ease Nick Chubb back into the game plan. But as things go along, you're going to see less and less of D'Ernest Johnson, especially once Kareem Hunt gets back. At that point in time, you're going to have the more valuable player with David Johnson than you would have with D'Ernest Johnson. So I'm going to hold on to David Johnson right now. I'm going to stick and stay with David Johnson. D'Ernest Johnson, I think, is a little bit more of a headache currently. Could he produce at that Kareem Hunt level and be kind of a top 24 back this week? Sure, he could. But do I want to risk having a better player in the coming weeks once Kareem Hunt gets back? Nah, I'm not ready to pull the trigger there. So we're gonna hold on to David Johnson there, even though D'Ernest Johnson is probably the better play this week. I'm not ready to just use that kind of 1 week pick up and play. Now, if you were almost assured that you could get David Johnson back off the waiver wire, then that would be the play and a more optimal move to make. But if he's not going to be there, I don't believe. I know I'm not sure. I'm ready to kind of pull the trigger there and drop David Johnson without a guarantee that I'd be able to get him back. PPR wanting to know Ryan Tannehill. Of course, PPR is not really going to matter too much with the quarterbacks here. Ryan Tannehill or Teddy Bridgewater. I'm going to Teddy Bridgewater all day based on that matchup. Indianapolis Colts secondary has been really solid against opposing quarterbacks this year. They ranked 16th in the NFL, 19.4 points per game allowed to opposing quarterbacks. And of course, we have seen Tannehill have his struggles. Now they do not have Julio Jones again today, whereas you look at Teddy Bridgewater facing the aforementioned Washington football team that is the worst in the NFL, giving up 30 points per game to opposing quarterbacks on the season through 7 weeks. So I got to go with Teddy Bridgewater. The numbers there are definitely telling me to go that way, Rob. So let's go Teddy Bridgewater there. And, of course, here we go again. Lark McFlurry wanting to know Teddy B or Sam Darnold this week. Again, I'm going Teddy Bridgewater. That matchup is all the juiciness for me. I mean, and have some leftovers for Teddy Bridgewater. For me, I'm going Teddy Bridgewater all day over options like a Sam Darnold in those situations. Sam Darnold could have a solid game today, but let's look at it. I mean, 18th, Atlanta Falcons pass defense, 18th in the league, 19.2 points per game allowed to fantasy quarterbacks on the year. And like I just mentioned, 30 points per game allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater wins that above and beyond. So that's what we're going to go with today. I see you got Lamar Jackson on bye. Enjoy Teddy Bridgewater today as you ride with Lamar Jackson the rest of the way. So back to Rob here wanting to know, he's got Ridley out. Would you play Tim Patrick or Van Jefferson? Gosh, that's a good one because I have them both ranked very, very similarly at this point in time. And I think I've got Van Jefferson just slightly ahead of Tim Patrick. Let's see here. That I do. I have Van Jefferson just slightly ahead of Tim Patrick in my rankings. And coming off a 4-catch, 7-target game, he's been pretty steady with the targets each week in, week out. He's had a couple of games. 2 of the last 3 he's been under 20 yards. Last week, 43 yards, but he did get in the end zone. So I think we're looking at today a little bit more Possibility that Van Jefferson gets in the end zone over Tim Patrick. I know we're singing the praises of Teddy Bridgewater and the pass catchers for the Denver Broncos right now, but I think Tim Patrick's going to be the odd man out because let's be honest, we're looking at Jerry Jeudy, we're looking at Cortland Sutton is having good games, and then we're also looking at Noah Fant. Let's be honest. And so we're looking at Tim Patrick now being the fourth option out of those guys there. So that's what we're looking at. I'm going to play Van Jefferson. Hope he gets into the end zone. That would be the play that I would make today. I know you're at the very bottom of the barrel, Rob, when you're looking at options like that as far as players to play as you're wide receiver 3 or a flex option there. So that's what I would go with. I would go with Van Jefferson. Jermaine Campbell, likely going to be our last question here for the Woo Fantasy Game Day Live kickoff show here for week 8. Looking at a full point PPR. Only need one. Who do I start? We're looking at Adam Thielen, Jerry Jeudy, or Cordero Patterson. I think we're riding Cordero Patterson. I mean, I mentioned it at the top of the show, Calvin Ridley being out. I think you're going to look at a game plan that's going to heavily involve Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts from a pass catching standpoint for the Atlanta Falcons. So I have no qualms whatsoever about playing Cordero Patterson in my flex spot today. Let's be honest, he's been a solid option week in and week out. So Jermaine, let's go Cordero Patterson there. And last we're getting in these last quick rapid fire right before we shut things down here. We got a last few that have come in here last minute. So Devontae Parker, Pollard, or Khalif Raymond, needing to pick 2. I think I'm going to go with I think I'm going to go there for no teal. I want to go with Pollard and Khalif Raymond. We're going to leave Devontae Parker off. That matchup is a little bit too tough for Devontae Parker coming back from injury. For me, going on the road to Buffalo, I don't like it at all. So for me, I'm going to go Pollard and Raymond. Get those in there. Kyle wanting to know Burrow or Cousins. Looking at my rankings real quick. We're going to go with... We're going to go Joe Burrow there. I got Cousins as QB 11. I've got Burrow right now at QB 9. So I'm going to lean more towards Burrow there. Give me Burrow there, Kyle. Getting in Randy Miller wanting to know pick 2 Darrell Williams, Shepard, Brandon Cooks, Gainwell, or Higgins. I think I'm going to go Darrell Williams. And that's a good question. Let's go Darrell Williams and Sterling Shepard. Let's go with those 2, Randy. A lot of mix and match there between those options. But I think you're looking at kind of similar production standpoints from the other options with Shepard, Cooks, Gainwell, and Higgins. I think they're all going to be kind of around the same boat. A lot of coin toss potential there with those. I like Shepard in that matchup against the Chiefs there. Joe jumping in. Of course, bam. Everybody should drop us a like. We answer all these questions. That is right. Like us over here on the Rotoballer YouTube page. And of course, if you haven't already, go and like and follow at Woo_fantasy. We would appreciate that as well. Go follow the Woo Fantasy YouTube page while you're at it, and we will help you out over there as well, and give us a like there. Like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast on any of your podcast platforms as well. So Woo Fantasy, give us a like, subscribe, follow, anything you want to do there. We would greatly appreciate it. And last one out of the day here, Kyle jumping in again, wanting to know Higgins or Claypool full point PPR. I like Higgins here. I think the secondary option, while a lot of the focus is on Jamar Chase, I think Higgins is probably going to be a little bit better than Claypool. So that's what I'm going to go with there, Kyle. And bam, right there, we've got you guys ready to go. We are just a few seconds away from kickoff today here in week 8. Hopefully we got all your questions answered and helped you out. Good luck to everyone out there in week 8. Go follow us on at Woo_fantasy. Thanks for watching us today. Give us a like here on the YouTube page for Rotoballer. Go to rotoballer.com. Sign up for that premium pass today. Rotoballer.com/radio. Woo Fantasy promo code and sign up today. Get yourself that discount on that season-long NFL Premium Pass. And until next time, we will see you again with another episode of Woo Fantasy.